In the bustling world of business, you're either moving forward or falling behind. Welcome to For Action Takers Only, the podcast and Facebook group where dreams become reality. We're here to fuel your ambition, sharpen your skills, and inspire your entrepreneurial spirit. Dive into the sea of opportunities with our insightful discussions, expert advice, and powerful success stories. From investment strategies to business building tips, we've got it all. Are you ready to take your first step towards your dream life? Join us on this exciting journey, unleash your potential, and watch as your dreams transform into your reality. Remember, inaction is the enemy of progress. So get on the action train with For Action Takers Only, because the time to act is now and the place to start is here. For those who dare to dream and have the courage to act, the world is their oyster. For Action Takers Only, where dreams meet action. Tune in, take action, and transform your life. Your future self will thank you.
And welcome to For Action Takers Only, the podcast for serial entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and anyone taking action in their dream life. I'm Todd Kirkhoff, and I'm your host. I started this to network with others and to see their motivation or find their motivations. I hope you like what you see here, and if you do, please like and subscribe. The channel can always use your support. Today, I have the honor of having Charles Reed as a guest. Charles is a president and CEO of GetPayroll.com. He has an MBA, is a CPA, a tax court practitioner, an employment tax expert, a small business advocate, and an author of 4 books, which I got one of them here, and we're going to talk a little bit about today too. In addition to his executive career, Charles is also a decorated United States Marine Corps sergeant and a combat veteran of the Vietnam War. So thank you for your service too. I'm going to bring him on in. How you doing, Charles?
Todd, I'm doing very well. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me on.
Okay. We're having a little technical difficulty. There we go. There we go. How you doing, Charles?
On.
Oh. Okay, now we got it. You good? Can you hear me, Charles?
I can hear you just fine, Todd.
All right. So how you doing?
I'm doing very well. As I tell people, the sun came up this morning. I got out of bed. It's a good day.
Yeah, it is. It's a good day. So I got to ask you, starting, we're going to go back a long way in your life. How did you get started in as a tax advisor and all this with the GetPayroll and the tax advisory stuff?
Well, after my military service, I went to college and got my BBA, my MBA, and sat for and passed my CPA exam. So I started doing taxes for people, on an ad hoc basis almost immediately. Did them for my father and his business. After about 15 years in corporate, I decided to get out of the corporate world and start my own business. So I hung out my shingle as a CPA and had a accounting practice and a payroll service bureau as a sideline. And so started doing taxes for small businesses and accounting for them, and started doing taxes for them, the owners and their kids and their friends, and you know how it goes, word of mouth. So it was good business. About 10 years ago, I sold the tax practice to my partner as he wanted to be more independent himself. So I sold him that portion of the business and kept the payroll portion for myself, and have expanded it ever since. And that forced me to become a payroll tax expert. And because the IRS was getting very obstreperous a few years ago, I went and became a U.S. Tax Court Practitioner, which allows me to practice in U.S. Tax Court, even though I'm not a state licensed attorney. It's the only federal court where a non-attorney can practice.
Okay. And how did you come across that? How did you get involved with that?
Well, I've known about it for years. It's just part of the accounting background. CPAs know that if they become one, then they can represent their clients in tax court. Well, I went and took a course in it, spent a couple of years studying. The tax court really doesn't like us, but they have to put up with us. So they give an exam once every 2 years live in DC. And it's a in-person test, and you have to know tax court procedure, evidence, ethics and substantive tax. So I sat for and passed the exam the first time I sat for it. And so I became one out of there's a couple of hundred of us in the country total. They normally license in about 8 to 10 every 2 years.
Okay. Okay. So, and along with taxes, you're also a payroll. You own a payroll business.
I own a payroll
So,
company. Yep.
okay. How long have you had the payroll business?
Well, the business has existed for a third of a century. It'll be 33 and a third years come December 17th. So
Okay.
we've always had the payroll. It has been a separate company for about 10 or 12 years now, but I've been doing employment tax work since the beginning and have studied it and become quite knowledgeable at it. In many cases, when I'm dealing with the IRS, I know more about it than they do. But that's just because I live it and breathe it, and they don't.
Right. So, and you got a software though too, a payroll software called GetPayroll.
Well,
How long ago?
that's the company, and
That's the whole company.
that's the whole company. It's it's GetPayroll Inc. We
Okay.
are on the web as getpayroll.com, and that's where we process all the payroll, pay all the taxes, file all the forms, do all the dispute resolution, deal with the IRS and the states and the locals and so on for our clients, which are across the country.
Okay. And who does your software compete with?
Well, we compete with the big guys, ADP's, Paychecks, of course, and then there's smaller ones. There's about 4,000 service bureaus in the country. Most of them are local. They service a community or a state, maybe 2 states if they're in a border city. There's very few national companies that can handle all the states. We're one of them.
Okay. So with over 40 years experience, how have you seen the payroll industry evolve?
Oh, look, I remember when we used to make deposits at the bank for our clients for their taxes in person. You can't do that anymore. It's all electronic. Uh, the technology changes have been immense. Software changes. We started, when fax machines were new. Well, nobody uses fax machines anymore except the IRS. They're basically obsolete. So technology's changed, software's changed, the IRS has changed. Everything is going electronic more and more. The IRS is pushing it. We're pushing it. We prefer our clients to be all electronic. It just makes life easy for everybody and cheaper. We don't have to send paper. We don't have to send checks. Direct deposit and debit cards are the thing now. We're moving almost exclusively to that. Very few paychecks, except in some of the low-end industries that are hiring low-end workers, low-paid workers. But that's beginning to go to debit cards more and more. We've moved all of our Golden Corral restaurants. All the new employees now have debit cards. The old ones, as they change out or replace, people have them. So we're issuing fewer and fewer checks, even there in the restaurant business. So it's going to disappear over the next few years. It's just no reason to have paper checks. There's so much subject to fraud and problems and getting lost in delivery and everything else. Electronic's the way to go. So that's been a push for 30 plus years and continues to be.
So what's been the biggest challenge, like with everything going digital on the payroll side?
People understanding it. Even the IRS, it never works well to start. We all know that. There's always bugs to start with. It's funny. I have one right now I'm dealing with where I have a confirmation that we sent the W-2s electronically. I have the sheet that we printed out from the Internal Revenue Service with all the codes on it and so on, and they're trying to penalize my client for not filing them.
Oh, wow.
And I have sent them copies of it, and they have it in their files. But they're still trying to penalize my client.
Right.
I had that conversation today, and we're probably going to have to file a tax court petition and get an IRS attorney to look at it and look at the form that we have. It says, "Oh, we filed them," and they go, Oh, well, I guess you did. Never mind.
All right.
So dealing with bureaucracy of the IRS and the states and the locals is always the biggest challenge.
I bet. So being a tax expert though and a tax consultant, well, you're a tax court practitioner. So do you do that mainly to help small businesses? And do
Yes,
you support them in the tax? That's how you, okay, so you're supporting the small businesses and tax courts.
right. Our clientele is small business. I mean, our biggest client maybe has 250 people, and they're the outlier. Most of our clients are 20 and less. We specialize in small business. Our competitors don't necessarily. They prefer the big ones with lots of float. We like the small guys because, frankly, once we get them set up, they just run forever. And it's
Okay.
great. It's easy for them, easy for us, and it's just we get paid our fee every 2 weeks for doing the payroll, and their payroll comes out, and when the problems arise, the IRS screws up, we take care of it. IRS makes millions of mistakes a year. Believe me, they issue billions of dollars in employment tax penalties, many of which get abated by people like me who know that it's an error.
Okay.
The vast majority of what the IRS sends us ends up getting abated because they're wrong or they've overreached. Uh, the IRS cannot penalize you for a simple mistake. They can only
Oh, really?
penalize you for gross negligence. Of
Okay. So
course,
they have to prove gross negligence.
no, they assume gross
No.
negligence. You have to
Okay.
prove it was a simple mistake.
All right. Okay. Well, I got it backwards. And I guess most
And
people do. That's
yeah,
go ahead.
in the end, it's the judge that decides if you get that far. But dealing with the IRS, it's a whole series of no's followed by a single yes. It's like sales. So you appeal, you appeal, you appeal, you appeal, you appeal until you find somebody that says, "Yeah, that makes sense. Okay."
That sounds like a whole lot of fun. So you're dealing with a lot of small businesses then in both the tax and the payroll. So what kind
Yes.
of innovative features does the Get Payroll offer the small businesses then?
Well, the biggest thing that differentiates us from the competition is compliance. We have the expertise. I am a CPA. I'm a U.S. Tax Court Practitioner. I live and breathe employment tax law. Uh, our competitors don't. Most of our competitors, if you say, I've got a tax question and I need a CPA, they don't have any available for you. They have them,
Right.
but they're on a different floor handling their tax problems, not yours. There's some professional responsibility and liability that comes with representing clients. Okay? It's just, it's a professional obligation and there's professional
Hmm.
liability. Our competitors won't take that on. They just refuse to. And I understand that. It's can be overwhelming at times. There's a lot of responsibility. And if you're a multi-billion-dollar company that's handling hundreds of thousands of clients, you don't want those kind of problems. They're not worth it to you. We take care of our clients. We've been over backwards for our clients. That's what we've always done. That's how I was brought up in a small family business. You take care of them. You want loyal clients. You don't want happy clients. You want loyal clients. Because then when you screw up, they'll still stick around.
Right. All right. So what are some of the common legal things you see in the tax court with the businesses? Like the legal
Well,
issues. You said they make a lot of mistakes, but are there some common ones that you see on a regular basis?
one of the big problems is small businesses tend to misclassify workers as employees versus contractors. This isn't a choice. This is a whole body of law that changes. There was new rules issued this year by the Biden administration on what's an independent contractor. They overruled
Hmm.
and took away the Trump rules and the rules previous to that. So every administration changes these rules, and if you're not up to speed on them, you can screw up. And the rules that they've put in are going to take years to work through the courts because they're literally draconian. They could eliminate the gig economy.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
if if the work that person does is vital to the business, then they're an employee. you don't pay them unless it's vital, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
literally, the wording of the new regulations could eliminate the gig economy entirely because nobody pays for work they don't need. So
Right.
now what the courts are going to interpret, I don't know. Only the courts know in the end, and it's going to be how it's presented and everything else. I don't expect it to be that draconian, but it may be. I don't know. That's one of the big things is misclassification. People just don't understand what they can and can't do. Another one, frankly, is not knowing what they don't know, what they need to file,
Okay.
when they need to file it, what they need to pay, when they need to pay it. And then when the IRS screws up, how to handle it. Uh, you take Ronaldo, world famous soccer player, wonderful
Mm-hmm.
athlete. On the soccer field, he's the man. You put him in a New York Yankees uniform at second base, and he's just lost. He's still a great athlete. So when you have an entrepreneur who's good at their business, makes money, keeps clients happy, grows his business, and now you tell him, okay, now you have to deal with the IRS. They're
Yeah.
Ronaldo at second base. They're lost. And that's where we come in. So those are the big things. I'll tell you the single biggest source of IRS penalties is arithmetic errors.
Oh, really?
They don't add
Okay.
or
And
multiply on the forms properly. They do it by hand, and they make mistakes. They make arithmetic mistakes, things they should have learned in fourth grade. But it happens all the time.
all the time, and you got to go back there and fight them on it, huh?
Right. And I'll tell you another funny one. The biggest source of tips to the IRS for tax problems and people not doing things properly, you know what the
Mhm.
biggest source is?
No, sir.
Ex-spouses.
Oh, wow. I should have
So
guessed that.
if you're gonna finagle on your taxes, don't tell your spouse.
Right? Oh, boy. That's a good one. That's a good one.
The
Oh,
next
wow.
biggest one is ex-employees, so don't tell them either. Just keep it to
Well,
yourself,
I was,
and
that's
don't
what
tell
I would
me.
guess that. Yeah, I would guess that before the ex-wives, but
No,
it
the
makes sense.
ex-wife.
Makes sense. They want they want to get some revenge, and they also want to probably get something out of it. So,
Yeah, nothing more dangerous than a woman scorned.
oh yeah. So tell me, what's some good advice to small business owners getting started then? What should they focus on taxes and payroll?
Well, get a payroll company. The moment you incorporate or file as an S corp, uh, not as a sole proprietor. As a sole proprietor, you don't have to have payroll for yourself. But the moment you incorporate or set up as an S corp, an LLC as an S corp, or hire an employee, get a payroll company. It's cheap, it's inexpensive, and it just saves you headaches. Before I ever started this, whenever I was in business, we always used a payroll service. It wasn't worth learning and keeping up with all the complexities. 75% of all US tax revenue comes through the payroll systems.
Okay.
Okay, 75%. So
Yeah.
understand when they want to change how they're getting revenue, they payroll. Everything else, tariffs, excise taxes, and everything else they do is 25% of the revenue. 75% comes through payroll. So that's where congressional focus on changing the law is. So the laws change all the time. And if you don't keep up with them, you'll get blindsided. We take all the trades, we get all the emails from the IRS, all the newsletters, we do that stuff every week. We get the trade journals, we keep up on it. You can't do your business and do that. Okay, there's entrepreneur has to outsource things. Yeah, in the beginning you wear all the hats, and you can see what that's done to my bald head. Okay, so you want to get rid of those hats as quickly as possible when you can. And one of the early ones to take off and hand off is payroll. It just isn't worth trying to be an expert in that. with your own company. You should be focusing on your business and doing only the things that only you can do. So yeah, that's one of those things you quickly outsource.
Okay. Well, what advice would you give small business owners to make sure they're in compliance? Again, just hire a payroll.
I would say for the small businessman to try to do it himself, it's impossible. I spend hours every week keeping up on new things. Okay, they can't take the time. It's not worth the time they would have to spend to do compliance to keep up with it. The time they would waste in keeping up with it doesn't pay for it. It just, when you start out and it's brand new and you got to do everything because you have no money, I understand that, and you have to do what you have to do. We all did. But it's just not worth the effort. I mean, we're talking a pittance compared to the amount of time. And we have expert systems, we have sophisticated software, hardware, banking relationships, all these things to be able to do this and do it effectively. I don't paint my own building. I don't build my own computers. I don't mow
Right.
my own lawn. I outsource this stuff. I mean, can I build a computer? Yeah, I did in the past. Would I do it again? No. My time is far more valuable in my business than it is trying to assemble a computer from parts. Okay, I did it in the beginning because I couldn't afford to do it, but I wouldn't do it now. It's one of
Okay.
those things that you want to outsource. Sorry, that's just
No, that's completely understandable. Now, I want to get into talking about some of your book. Can you tell us about your book?
sure. I looked around here a few years ago and I said, well, there's nothing really out there for small business. Why don't I write something? Well, 2 years later, and with the help of
Years.
2 years and the help of Wiley and Son, who's the publisher, and because I'd published 3 books, self-published 3 books prior to that, but Wiley and Son made this one a great deal better than it would have been otherwise.
Okay.
With help with editing and layout and production and all those things. They made an indexing. My God, I love the index on that book. I couldn't have done it if I had to. We outsourced it. Uh, yeah, so they made it a much better book, and I say it's 30 years of wisdom distilled down to 95,000 words. It won't tell you everything, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of horror stories about things not to do, that'll get you into trouble. That we highlight and say, don't do this, and this is why, and here's what happens. But it'll run you
Mm-hmm.
through all the aspects of payroll and payroll taxes, how to actually do a payroll, calculate overtime and blended overtime, and all these things. And then the third chapter of the book is other things you need to know, things like handbooks, record keeping, PEOs, illegal aliens, illegal aliens, and so on. So it's designed to be payroll and payroll related aspects of operation in the law and to keep you out of trouble. And if you have questions, my phone number's in the book.
Okay. And then it's also you're online, all online. You have some great videos, great YouTube channel
Oh yeah,
with a lot of information.
we do. Michael, my videographer, is posting stuff weekly. We do shorts. We do a lot of educational videos. We do some fun ones. The last Halloween one with the IRS as the Army of the Dead was hilarious.
Yeah. And I'll have all his YouTube information in the description when this goes up. So that will be in the description. So can you tell me some of the like a new business owner, can you tell me about classifications of business, like, LLC to sole proprietor,
Sure.
like
There,
you're
there's
talking about?
there's
Go ahead.
four basic entities that most businesses will fall into. There's a few specialty ones, but they're rare. For doctors and lawyers, maybe some limited partnerships and so on. But basically, you have sole proprietor, which is what you fall into originally. It's just you in business, and you're personally liable for everything that goes on, which is not good. A partnership, which is when you're in business with somebody else, but you're still personally liable for everything, and it's treated everything gets split up between you and your partner and reported on your personal returns. It's a pass-through entity. Then you have an LLC, which is a limited liability company that can be treated either as a sole proprietor, or you can file to be treated as an S corp for tax purposes, which is a preferable entity in most cases because it's tax advantaged as opposed to a sole proprietorship. And then a corporate status. Corporations are created by the state you're in or the state you apply to. You can get a Delaware corporation. Many of the big companies use Delaware because there's a lot of legal aspects to that that are preferable. Frankly, for small business, it isn't worth paying twice because you'll pay in your state and in Delaware. For a major company, the Delaware Chancery Court is very much biased toward the companies, but that's a rare thing for a small business to ever need, very rare. So normally incorporating the state you're in, because you're going to have to pay the taxes there regardless of where you incorporate, because you'll
Okay.
file as a foreign company, foreign corporation in your state, and you'll pay all the fees, and then you'll pay them to the state you incorporated in. So yeah, people tell you Delaware and Nevada is a preferable state to incorporate in. Yeah, but for small businesses, it frankly doesn't matter, and just incorporate in the state you're in because you're going to pay all the fees anyway.
All right, let me ask you about this because now when I started my LLC, the company told me I should form one LLC and put it in Montana because of the taxes, no business taxes or something there. And then so I formed my first LLC in Montana, and then I formed another one under that LLC, or for another LLC under that one, but that operates in Texas. What is the benefits of that?
It benefits the lawyer because you set up two LLCs.
Pretty much. All right. Well, that's it. So, so what are some of the biggest mistakes you see businesses like when they're classifying themselves doing? They're just classifying themselves wrong.
Well, the problem with a sole proprietorship is first of all, it's easy to get into. You just go into business. The liability, everything you do, you're personally liable, and all your personal assets are at risk. Forming a corporation in Texas is $300 one time. And if you're under $1 million in revenue, you don't pay any additional taxes in Texas. That's the cheapest liability policy you will ever buy. Because if the corporation does something and gets sued, you can just hand the corporation to the guy that's suing you and say, here, it's yours, and go file for a new one the next day. And there's nothing they can do. They can't go after your personal assets. You keep the assets out of the company. You give the money legally from the company to you, so it's yours. And there's nothing there to attach. Restaurants. I've seen this originally with Denny's many years ago. Each restaurant was separately incorporated. And we had one in Kansas City, and there was a slip and fall. And the lawyer got all nasty and was going to sue Denny's. And they basically said, okay, you can have the restaurant and all the liabilities that go with it, the mortgage and everything else. And the lawyer looked at it and they walked away because it was negative. They would, if they won the lawsuit, they would end up costing themselves, period. There was nothing there. So you keep the corporate entity bare. And if you get it, it doesn't matter. There's nothing there for them to steal from you. So it's liability protection. So it's a huge liability policy. It's like buying liability insurance that you can't buy like that for any kind of price, one-time fee. I mean, that's just incredible. Now, some states there's an annual fee. California will cost you $800 a year, but you're in California and it's the Golden State, and so okay. Gavin Newsom appreciates you.
Well, yeah, he sure does. He's lining his pockets. Yep. So the benefit then for LLCs. Now, in real estate, we have a lot of people doing LLCs. They'll do separate LLCs for every property they get, like you're saying, like some of the. So that's just protection, like you said. That's a blanket protection then, huh?
Exactly. That way you can have. So if you have assets in one, the others aren't risking those assets. Each one's independent, and each one would have to be sued independently for its action. So you can't get everything. Yeah, real estate, absolutely. Split it up as much as you can and keep it bare. So there's nothing there for an avarice lawyer to go after. They're going after deep pockets. They're not going after threadbare pockets. So just don't present them anything to come steal from you, and they won't. It's not worth their time.
Okay.
I advocate that always. You don't want to have stuff out there that they can go after.
So what kind of costs do small businesses acquire with payroll? Say a 5 to 10 employee company, what would payroll usually cost them, you think, if they had to do it on their own?
Less than $100 a month if we do it.
Yeah.
If they do it on their
If
own,
you-
start multiplying the number of hours times what their billing rate is, and it's very quickly you go, oh, hey, look, I need to outsource this.
Right.
You just figure figure what your time's worth, and you start multiplying that out, and it's just it's a no-brainer.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, because it's like, how would I, even if I had 5 employees, how am I going to stay on top of all the laws, the tax laws and all the payroll laws, and what happens if I mess up here? And, there's a lot I couldn't imagine. So that's all I think about when I start getting somebody. I'm going to do more. I'm going to be contracting people to start, but definitely going to need your services when I do start.
Hey, Todd, you want a sales job?
Yeah. What kind of sales job you got?
You just sold payroll.
Well, I mean, it's like you say, it is a no-brainer, because there's absolutely, I mean, I've been thinking about this for a while. It's like I started my own little investment thing, but it's just me. So I'm thinking about, what am I going to do when I have a couple people underneath me that I got to pay that aren't just contractors? It's just like, how am I going to handle this? Because I don't know any of the laws. I don't know any of the tax laws. And quite frankly, some of that really scares the shit out of me. Excuse my French. But
Todd, I'll give you one thing to do. 972-353-0000. Punch 1 for payroll, or 2 for sales.
There you go. And you already had one of you guys. I talked to one of you guys via email. He had reached out, and yes, I'm keeping your information. I have all your stuff saved. So, and you're a local Texan, so I like that even more.
Yeah, we're just north of Dallas. Just north of Dallas.
Is it Louisville?
Yep.
Okay. All right. What other books? You have, you're an author of 4 books. What were the other 3 books that you have written?
Oh, the one was on the beauty business. It was the back office stuff for the beauty business. My marketing manager was an esthetician originally, so we did that. And that really was the impetus to do the payroll book. Then we did another one on how to start a business and the accounting and tax considerations of starting a new business. And that was revised one we'd done 20 years ago of the same thing, of how to start a business and all the things that go into it. Because I consulted with small businesses I have for, a third of a century. So we're intimately involved with what happens in a small business. We are one ourselves, and we've been through it all, and we've been through all the aspects of the ups and downs of doing it. Remember, I was in a panel discussion, and I was on the panel, and it was entrepreneurs, and somebody said to me, "What about work-life balance?" And I cracked up. I just started laughing my ass off. I said, "When you're a new entrepreneur, there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's work." And if you don't have if your partner doesn't understand that, you're going to have problems, because it's going to be 80, 90 plus hours a week, every week, for a few years, until you get your feet really planted firmly. And that's just being an entrepreneur. And it's not for everybody. Being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. Some people need to go for the government. I mean, 40 hours a week, 30 days vacation, retire in 30 years. There's worse ways to live, but you couldn't get me working for the government on a bet.
All right. So you got any other books planned? Any new ones coming out?
Well, I've considered writing one on how to work with your wife, because the wife and I started the business together, and I grew up in a family business. My parents worked together. I thought it was ordinary and common, right? Well, working with
Oh,
your
wow.
wife is an unnatural act. So
Yeah. I can imagine. I can't even imagine. So I was going to ask you about that. So you have a wife, and so you have a family. How did you struggle through business with your family?
well, my wife has passed. We were married for 45 years, but she passed 9 years ago. We have
Sorry to
kids.
hear.
None of them are in the business. None of them wanted to be, which is fine. They all have their own lives and scattered around the country. I do have one daughter, Lily. We lost our eldest daughter to cancer. But
Mm.
yeah, it's tough. Let me tell you, raising kids and being an entrepreneur is not easy. I mean, first of all, you're working with your wife, so I was working with my wife. She was involved in the business, and uh, thank God the kids were already in school because it would have been really tough if they hadn't been. So,
Well, I see most entrepreneurs that have their wives involved or tend to be more successful when that wife is helpful and supportive.
the 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 business is so overwhelming and so consuming that it almost becomes your family, your wife, your kids. It's everything to you because you're trying to make it successful. And if they're involved in it, they understand that. If they're not, we found this many times they resent it that you're so involved in it that you have no time for them. And if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you probably don't have time for them, at least for the first few years. I mean, we
Right.
didn't take a vacation for probably 10 years. Uh, you know,
Okay.
our vacations were an extra day at a seminar that we went to, or an accounting convention or a payroll convention that we went to for business, and we might grab an extra day. It was probably 10 years before we took a vacation.
All right. So how many people you have on your staff now?
We got about a dozen. We used to have more,
Okay.
but technology has allowed us to do more business with fewer people. So we let attrition take a few away. We haven't had any turnover in years. We're just growing, and technology gets more productive. So we're continuing to do more with less people, and that's kind of nice.
Right. So have any of your techie guys have they been getting you into the AI craze?
Well, we've looked at the AI, particularly for the marketing side, and we found that it is not ready for prime time. Uh, it's good for Sunday supplement maybe, but it's not good for what we do. Uh, and so I'm an old data processing guy. I was a computer programmer before I became an accountant. And what passes for AI, and now they've gone to calling it generative AI because that's what it is. It
Right.
generates output. It's it's intelligent. It's not intelligence. It is expert systems that have been programmed with rules and techniques to produce output. Okay, so you're just taking somebody else's uh, ideas of how to generate output and using that instead of your own. And we didn't find it very useful.
No, it doesn't help in the payroll side.
No, it's not ready for prime time by any stretch of the imagination.
You see it
I
coming.
oh yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, hopefully it'll get better and better. For instance, here about a year ago, we put in a VoIP system for our phone system.
Mhm.
When we built this building 25 years ago, I looked at it, and it just wasn't ready. It was terrible. I mean, quality and systems and everything else just didn't work very well. Well, now voice over IP is wonderful. It's great.
Right.
Uh, it's come of age, and hopefully AI will too. But it's not ready for prime time yet.
Yeah. Now you said you were doing some with the marketing. How is it with the marketing? Are you using it? Are they using it with the mark?
No, we tried it and it just what the product generated was substandard. It required more tweaking afterwards to bring it up to standard, to bring it up to our level of what we wanted it to be, than it was to put it from scratch to start with.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't come out natural. Some of the stuff, especially like yeah, it just doesn't come out natural yet. I agree with you. So, all right, let's get back to the book. What are some of the most important lessons or strategies a reader can learn from the book?
Well, one of the things you need is a employee manual. You need to specify a lot of things. There's programs.
Mm-hmm.
We have a partner that writes them as well, because that's a contract with your employee. Otherwise, you'll find yourself, if you have to terminate them because they're not working out, if you don't have an employee handbook that details why you can terminate them, then you will end up paying unemployment on them, and that can be very expensive because you won't be able to fire them for cause because you haven't specified what cause is. And if you don't know this, your state unemployment people are on their employee's side. They're not on your side. They're not on the employer's side. They will always take the employee side, always.
Right.
So unless you have a cast iron case for cause, you lose. And that can be thousands and thousands of dollars you will have to pay to cover their unemployment.
So what in Texas, like if someone's let go, how long does the company have to pay unemployment to the employee?
They can get it for now, I think, a year, and whatever they get, you end up having to pay back in taxes. That's
Okay.
Every year your rate's adjusted to make your account go down to zero over the next 3 years. The minimum rate is 0.25% of $9,000. So it's almost nothing. It's less than $100 a year per employee if nobody ever claims anything. And that's just to pay the salaries of the people that sit in the office and give you problems. But your rate will go up in every state if you terminate somebody and they get unemployment because you didn't terminate them for cause. Now, sometimes you may not be able to terminate them for cause. I mean, that's if you have to lay people off and you're going to have to suck it up and pay the taxes. But if you're getting rid of somebody, if you don't have cause delineated in your handbook that they've agreed to and signed off on, then you lose. So that's a huge thing in dealing with employees and the government. That's one of the things we detail in the book. And record keeping. If you don't keep enough records long enough for all these various agencies, if somebody says to me, how long do I need to keep records? I just say, keep everything forever. Then you're guaranteed you have it. There's some rules about 3 years and 5 years and 7 years and 10 years. But if you've got the space, just keep it.
Okay. Just keep it. So they'll dig, huh? You're pretty much telling me they'll come digging that far back. So
I had a client that got into a nasty thing because of an ex-employee had accused them of some things, and the IRS investigated, and we provided them with 10 years of accounting records.
Wow.
And 10 years of payroll records and everything else. And my client spent well over $100,000 in legal fees. And at the end of 2 years, the IRS said, never mind.
Oh man, gotta love it. So let me ask you this. I know a lot of entrepreneurs employ their family members and children. What are the tax benefits, or what are the benefits of doing so?
Depending upon your entity and the children and what they do, there can be some major benefits. If you're incorporated, there's less in a sole proprietorship. Your kids, you don't have to pay Social Security and Medicare on them if they're young enough. I detail all that in the book. And Todd, if any of your listeners would like a copy of the book, if they will go to payrollbook.com and the discount code podcast, we will ship them free of charge a copy of the book as long as supplies last.
And I'll attest to that because I requested the book and got it free of charge, and it's right here.
Yep.
It's got a
No
lot
shipping,
of
no handling,
information.
no nothing. If they would like a copy, they think it'll be useful to them, by all means, just request one. And if you're reading it and you still have questions, my phone number's in the conclusion.
And link will be in the bio or in the description of the video up on YouTube and on Spotify. So if you want to find it there, you'll be able to find the link there.
Great.
So what other tax, what would be the most, or one piece of advice you would give new business owners that really just, hey, this is, besides just getting the payroll and taxes, is there anything that really sticks out that new business owners tend to screw up?
Yes, I've got a couple. The first one I stole from Bill Gates before he got a little strange. People will overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. Business is a marathon. It's not today and tomorrow. It's next week, next month, next year, next decade. You'll be amazed what you can accomplish in years. It's just amazing what you can do. You're probably never going to be that unicorn of Gates or Bezos, but if you work at it, your business can grow and produce a very fine living and all the benefits that go with it. So take the long view on your entrepreneurship. And the other one is in dealing, and that is there's never a traffic on the extra mile. Go the extra mile for your clients, go the extra mile for your employees, because your competitors won't. And that makes all the difference.
Absolutely. So in your 40 years plus in this industry, you look back, do you have any clients that like stand out, any stories that really stand out on taking on a new client, payroll or anything like that?
I had one client. This is fun, and this is one of the reasons I had joined the IRS Advisory Council. This took 9 years to resolve. They had made a simple mistake when they had sent in the W-2s. They didn't consolidate the management and the employees. They just sent the management ones by accident. Well, when they realized it, they sent the others. Well, the IRS decided that they were going to penalize them to the tune of $90,000 for not sending those in on what they considered a timely basis. So we got into this. We fought it for them for a number of years, went through all the levels of appeals, finally got to the Director of Field Operations, which oversees multiple state appeals offices, and he wouldn't return my phone calls. Well, I'd been on the advisory council and had met the Chief of Appeals in D.C. and had the org chart for the IRS. So I called and spoke to the Deputy Chief of Appeals and says, according to the table of organization, this guy works for you and he won't return my phone calls. I've been calling him every 2 weeks for a year. And she said, well, Charles, let me look into that. And he called me that afternoon. And we went through the whole situation. And he said, I'll tell you, Charles, what I'll do. I'll place it with another appeals office that hasn't looked at it, and we'll see what happens. Well, of course, coming from the top down is a lot different than coming from the bottom up. So he placed it at the Minneapolis appeals office. And 3 months later, instead of what was then a $95,000 penalty with interest and so on, my client got a $400 refund.
Okay.
It just took 9 years, and that's
9 years.
You got to know the right people. Sometimes it's a matter of knowing what to do and knowing the right people and making the right phone calls. And my client's attorney was just astounded that we actually got it done. And he says, Charles, next time I have something like this, I'm calling you.
Right. Well, I'm going to keep your number handy for any tax things, definitely. Now, let me ask you this: how often do LLCs have to file taxes in the state of Texas? Are
Which
they just
taxes?
yearly, or any taxes like income for the business or anything like that? I'm learning, so I need to learn my tax stuff for small business. How often am I supposed to file? Is there special things I'm supposed to file?
Well, if you have payroll, it can be as much as twice a week.
Okay, I don't have payroll, so I don't have to worry about that. Just to say,
Okay,
a sole
for
proprietor, they just got to file yearly like regular taxes.
normally that's going to be only yearly, and with the state of Texas, if you're under a million, it's simply a public information report, and you don't pay anything. That's Texas. It's up to 1.2 million or something now is the level for franchise tax, which is what they call it's the replacement for state income taxes. It basically is a state corporate income tax, but you file it once a
Okay,
year, and if you're under a million in revenue, there's no tax due. That's all you have to do with Texas. For the IRS, you're going to have to file, since you don't have employees, you don't have monthly or quarterly filings, you'll just file if you've set up as an S Corp, you'll file your 1120S by the 15th of March, and you'll file your 1040. If you're a sole proprietor, you'll file a Schedule C on your 1040 by the 15th of April of the following year.
okay, all right. So that's pretty easy. But if you get farther into business, though, I'm not looking to do that myself.
The moment you hire somebody, then you're going to be filing quarterly with the Texas Workforce Commission, and you're going to be filing at least quarterly with the Internal Revenue Service, and possibly making deposits on a monthly or semi-weekly basis.
And what kind of trouble can an employer get in if they don't?
They can put you out of business.
Pretty easy. Let me ask you this, because I do sales right now. I work for a drone company and sell enterprise drones, and I'm supposed to get a commission, but they never stay on top of their commission.
I'd
I
look
don't get
for a
them
different
regular.
employer.
Oh yeah, but I just is there anything an employee say can do on that?
Well, are you an employee or you're a contractor?
No, I'm an employee for this small business. I'm
Then
part-time
you can
employee.
talk to the Department of Labor. You can talk to the Texas Workforce Commission, which is the state Department of Labor. You can talk to the federal
Hmm.
Department of Labor. If you get your W-2, you can talk to the IRS. You can talk to the Attorney General about wage theft. If they're not
Okay.
paying you what they're supposed to, all these options, the government will work for you. The TWC will gladly take up your case and go actually seize the money from the employer if it's due you. They'll
Okay.
seize it out of his bank
That's good.
account.
Hmm.
Wage
Even
theft
com
is a. I'm sorry.
even commissions, is that considered a wage since they're commissions?
If you're on a W-2, it's wages.
Okay. Yeah, I'm W-2.
Yeah. So yeah, it's wages, it's compensation, and it's wage theft if they don't pay you. So
Okay.
if you have it in writing what you're owed, and they're not paying you, TWC it will go after them. Just call them up and go see them, and they'll go after them for what you're owed. That's their job.
That's good to know.
That's what they're supposed to be doing.
Right? So keep that job description and everything. All right, well we're winding down here. So anything you want to tell anything else you want to promote? We got your book. We talked about your book. We talked about the website getpayroll.com. We talked about your services. We definitely want to promote your services. Small businesses. I know a lot of small business owners. Oh, you did say something. You do some investing. Did you do some investing? I forget
Yeah.
the word.
I used, as I said, used to carry a 766 licenses. Was a registered investment advisor, and I
Okay,
do a
yeah,
lot of
that's
investing. And we own our own real estate, of course. We own our own building. We invested in that, and I'm getting ready to build a new custom house and all kinds of things going on. So I'm
okay.
heavily invested in the market at the moment, as well.
Okay.
It's been very profitable to us over the last number of years. There are some things on the horizon. I'm kind of concerned with the next election and so on, but we all should
Yeah,
be.
yeah, I think we all are.
And
So
as far as that goes, for all your listeners, go register to vote. I won't tell you how to
yes,
vote, but everybody needs to register to vote. It's coming up on deadlines in some states that you'll have to register to be able to vote. Register and go vote. I mean, I know how I'm going to
please do.
vote, but please, everybody go vote. I mean, if we all go vote, we'll get what we deserve.
Yes. Yep. And don't vote stupid. No, I won't tell you how to vote either. But we need a big change in this country because things are going down the tube. So it's
Yeah,
been bad. How is this economy hurt? Has this economy hurt your business? This will be the last question.
of course. I mean, the inflation, we have to go up on prices. As much
Hmm.
as we hate to do that, we have to increase our prices because our costs increase. I have to pay my employees. They have to live too. Their grocery prices have gone up. Gas prices have gone up. Car prices have gone up. Car insurance, everything has gone up. Okay,
Hmm.
uh, unnecessarily. Um, Inflation is a monetary uh, issue, and pumping money into the economy has caused inflation. And is continuing to. And so I have to raise prices. My clients have to raise prices. It's tough to expand. The changing laws and the regulations, the banking regulation changes have been tough on everybody, have been tough on us. We've had to change some drastic things internally because of uh, money transfer licensing and so on, which is a joke. The whole thing of beneficial ownership reporting for everybody. If they're not familiar with it, they need to be, because if the laws don't change as of January 1, you have to have reported to the government beneficial ownership of your company. And if you don't, the fines are huge. And it's designed to prevent criminal fraud. But of course, no criminal is ever going to report the information, so it's meaningless. It's
Right.
just one more socialist attempt to control us all and to have us all work for the government.
That's true. That's true. That's
That, that,
exactly where we're
that's
headed.
enough political commentary from me.
Yeah, right. I thank you. I thank you very much, Charles, for your time and coming on here today. Thank you for doing this. And it's been great meeting you and talking with you. And I look forward to hiring you as my payroll uh, person in the future and using your company. So,
We'll look forward to having you come on board, Todd, when you're ready. And thank you very much
all
for
righty.
having me on.
No problem. And then we'll have to get you on again in the future, see what's going on maybe after the election, see we can talk about some changes in laws and stuff. All right, well, I'm going to end this. I'm going to need you to hang out for a second, and that'll be it. Thank you, sir.